If you need immediate instructions on how to safely and properly clean up fire extinguisher residue, please advance this video to timestamp 15 minutes and 51 seconds. And I hope when your crisis has passed that you will watch the first half of this video to learn about what happened to me and how you can prevent it from happening to you. Hi everybody, it's Linda. Welcome back to Tips for You. Well, I have a very informative video to share with you today because I want to help prevent what happened to me from happening to you. And as a result of what happened to me, I lost my voice and I just got it back. So bear with me because it's still a little shaky, but I wanted to take the time to make this video as soon as I can because I just don't want what happened to me to happen to you. About 5 days ago, a fire extinguisher exploded in my home, and it was just an awful experience. And I want to share it with you because I want you to understand how you can prevent this from happening, because I certainly didn't know anything about this. I'm also going to share with you in this video how to clean up the residue of a fire extinguisher if you ever have to use one, or God forbid anything like this ever happens to you, which hopefully if you watch this video it won't. If you just tuned into this video in order to learn how to clean up the residue from discharging a fire extinguisher, then please fast forward to that section of the video where you'll learn all about how to clean it up properly and how you can protect yourself during the cleanup process. Okay, but first I'm going to tell you what happened to me and how my fire extinguisher exploded. So if you're interested in hearing my story, then please keep watching. Okay, so about 5 days ago, it was about 9 o'clock at night, I was in my room. I had gotten back earlier that day from a little trip that I took, and I was just unpacking my bags. And it was, all quiet. It was like a little rain coming down at night. All of a sudden, I hear a tremendous explosion. And I immediately thought, oh my goodness, did a transformer blow? But, obviously I still had electricity, so it wasn't that. Plus, it sounded like it was coming from inside my home. Now, my daughter was home. She was downstairs in the family room, and I was upstairs in my room. And she came running up the stairs. Mom, are you okay? I was running down the hall at the same time because I was worried something happened down there to her. So in between both of us, we had seen already nothing. I looked outside. Everybody had electricity. I knew it wasn't a transformer. I hadn't heard any thunder or lightning, so I started looking around the house. I went into the kitchen. We noticed everything was fine. And I made my way down to the basement. I open up the basement door and flick on the light, and I look down and I can't see anything. It is a complete whiteout, like thick white fog. I can't see the stairs. I can't see a thing. But I know the dehumidifier was running down there, so I thought, oh my gosh, it must be that. It caught fire or exploded, and I know there have been problems with dehumidifiers in the past. But I didn't smell anything burning. But I ran down there through this fog and whatever it was. I turned off the dehumidifier and I ran back upstairs and shut the door right away. And as I had shut off that dehumidifier, I looked up for a minute and I could see into the next room because I left the door open to the utility room where I have my furnace and my water tank and like a refrigerator and an oil tank. And I could see that the floor was completely covered, like thick with white powder. It looked like it snowed in there. Honest to God, it looked like an inch of snow on the ground. I couldn't see anything. But still, there was so much haze and dust, and I really couldn't see anything. But I happened to notice that. And I ran upstairs and shut the door. And I said to my daughter, I was like in a panic. I was like, oh my gosh, something happened down there, and I don't know what. And then I noticed that I tasted something salty in my mouth. Like it was in my mouth, like I took it in somehow when I must have breathed or something. And then I licked my lips, and it was all over me, like on my face, on my arms. It tasted salty. And I thought, oh wow, it must be some kind of chemical. Now, I have a well in my home, and my water is acidic. In order to raise the pH of my water so it doesn't corrode my pipes, I put what's called potassium carbonate into the water system. And it comes in a big 5-gallon drum. It has a lid. I've been doing that for as long as I've lived in this house, never had a problem. I thought it had something to do with that. You'll have to excuse the sounds you hear. I think somebody's power washing a deck or something. And he also recently gave me something called polysodium phosphate, I think it was called, in order to help that situation, because I was having a little trouble keeping the pH, and it was in a canister, and I thought, okay, that's what it had to be, this polysodium phosphate. I think it's called polyphosphate. I thought it had to be that. So I get on the phone with my water company, and I explain what happened, and I said, it tastes salty, it has to be that. And the guy was just like, well, I've never heard of this, but, I'll send a cleanup crew in the morning. And I go, well, I mean, how do I know? Is this stuff flammable? Is this toxic? He couldn't really help me. And he certainly wasn't coming over, he said, to go downstairs. He did not want any exposure to it. But he told me that perhaps I should call the fire department. Now, I didn't even think to call the fire department. So I called the fire department, and they were just nice as can be. I called the non-emergency line because, there was no fire going on, explained what I thought it might be and what to do. He said, don't go down there. We are coming. And they came very quickly, within 10 minutes, and they were fully dressed in, like hazmat clothing with respirators, and they were prepared to go down and see what it was. So they went down into the basement while we waited upstairs in the family room. And they called up to me that it was my fire extinguisher, that it had exploded. Now, what happened was the top of the fire extinguisher, where you pull the pin and squeeze it to release the contents, had literally just blown off, shot up to God knows where, and 100 pounds of pressure, this thing was under 100 pounds of pressure, it dispersed the entire contents of this fire extinguisher everywhere. There was so much. Both rooms in my basement, the finished room and that room where this fire extinguisher had been kept, were completely covered. Every inch, from floor to ceiling, every knick-knack, every tool, the dehumidifier had sucked it in, the refrigerator, everything. It was a nightmare. I was so overwhelmed by what I saw, I didn't think I was ever going to get this cleaned up. Plus, I wasn't feeling well. I remember I had inhaled this stuff. I went down into it. I didn't know what it was, and that was right at when this thing happened. So I wasn't feeling well. I was coughing, and I started losing my voice shortly thereafter. I should have known to go immediately and like get in the shower and wash myself and wash my hair, but I was just too immersed in the whole situation to figure it out. So the fireman explained what to do, how we should clean this up. He assured us that it was not toxic. My particular fire extinguisher contains something called monoammonium phosphate. And it's a non-toxic substance that's powdery, that puts out fires. However, it can be a problem if you inhale it, because it can coat your lungs, it can prevent you from breathing. So if you get too much of this in your lungs, you can get pneumonia. Now, I didn't get enough of it into myself in order for me to end up in the emergency room. I could still breathe, I was fine, but it is an irritant. It also contains mica and talc and some irritating substances. So naturally it inflamed my lungs. Over the process of some hours, my glands got swollen. I mean, my body obviously realized it was like under attack by something, and I am still getting over it. I mean, I still cough, and I still have problems with my voice, but each day I feel a little bit better. So you're probably wondering, well, how did this happen? And so was I. Basically, the seal failed on this thing. Now, it was very old. I can honestly tell you it was in that basement for probably 20 years. And basements are moist, and it just lost its integrity over the years. Now, what I came to find out with a little bit of research and talking to these firemen was that you are supposed to check your fire extinguishers every year. Make sure that the gauge still says it's full, and that it's, got no dents, no one's dropped it, it's in good shape, because these things can be hazardous. He's never seen one just explode by itself. Many times somebody causes them to explode. Believe it or not, people shoot at these things and cause them to explode, or they drop them or dent them, or who knows what. But mine was just sitting there and nobody's touched it. The other thing I learned was that they have a shelf life. 12 years. That's it. After 12 years, you are supposed to discard them. And by doing that, and I asked them, well, how are you supposed to discard these things? You just throw them in the garbage? Like, where do you take them? What do you do with them? Apparently, you discard them by pulling the pin and discharging the whole contents of your fire extinguisher into a sealed bag. Then you close it up and you throw it away with the rest of your garbage, and it being a non-toxic substance, it can be disposed of with the rest of your household trash. And then the can is aluminum, and so you can recycle that, and your garbage men or whatever will take it away. So make sure, as soon as you click off this video, you go and check your fire extinguisher. See if it's old, find out the year on it, and then I want you to do one other thing. I want you to call the number on your fire extinguisher, on the label, and find out if it's been recalled. That fire extinguisher that exploded was recalled years ago. I didn't know about it. They recalled within a 10-year time frame a bunch of fire extinguishers, of which my fire extinguisher was part of. And I never knew this. I would have known if I had bothered to check it over the last God knows how many years, right? If I had done it every year, looked at it. You can get on a website, which if you have it's a kidde. If you have one of those, mine was a kidde. If you have one of those fire extinguishers, they have a website. I will put it below in the description box. You can go on there and you can see if your fire extinguisher has been recalled, or you can call the company. Well, that fire extinguisher was recalled. So it was faulty, defective, and it should have been out of my home, off the market, and I didn't know about this, and now I am learning, and I don't want this to ever happen again. These are literally, to me, it feels like I have a time bomb in my home. The other thing I want to tell you is to keep your fire extinguisher in a closed area. In case anything like this ever happens to you, you won't have this stuff all over your house. So keep it in a closed cabinet, in your kitchen. They're good to have. I mean, if you have a fire in your kitchen, or you're cooking or whatever, you need a fire extinguisher. A good thing to have. I'm still going to have one. I literally discarded all the ones. I had 2 other ones, and they were all over 12 years old, so I got rid of those too. And I'm getting all new ones now. They offered to send me a replacement of the one that exploded, and I just said no thank you, because it's just too big. I don't want that big giant thing in my home. I just feel uncomfortable with it. I don't have any contained place for it, so I want a smaller one, and I'm going to check it every year, and I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to be responsible with it, because I don't want to go through this again. Believe it or not, I am still cleaning up this mess. It's going to take me days and days. I've been cleaning it up for the last 5 days, and I am still not done. I literally have to wipe residue off of every single item in that area. My pantry, food, everything, tools, you name it. It's a nightmare. It's a true nightmare. I just don't want that to happen to you, please. Check what you have, okay? I hope this video is going to help prevent something like this from happening to you. It was just devastating for my husband and I to clean this up. It was so overwhelming. We didn't want to call professionals to come in because it was such detailed work. We just felt more comfortable handling something like this ourselves. I truly feel blessed and grateful that I was not down there when this explosion occurred, nor were any of my family, because honestly, I think, to be exposed to an explosion like that, I think it would have destroyed the hearing. and it would have all gone in my eyes. I would have probably inhaled tremendous amounts of it. I mean, who knows if I would have gotten hit by that thing that flew off. I don't even want to think about it. I am just so happy and thankful that while it was just a devastating and awful experience, nobody was hurt. So I'm truly grateful that nobody was hurt, and I want to help you understand how this can happen and to help you prevent it. Now I'm going to get into the proper cleanup for this situation. Should you have a fire extinguisher disperse the contents in your home, okay, whether it's in your kitchen because you've had to use it for a fire, or you had some kind of a big catastrophe like I had. Choosing the right fire extinguisher by fire type is important for preventing property damage. In the remaining portion of this video, I will be discussing how you can safely and properly clean up the residue from dry chemical fire extinguishers. Those are fire extinguishers that contain monoammonium phosphate, sodium bicarbonate, or potassium bicarbonate. Here's an overview of the steps that you will be doing in order to clean up the fire extinguisher residue. You're going to vacuum or sweep up all the loose debris from floors, ceilings, walls, objects, couches, you name it. Then you're going to use a rag and a neutralizing agent to wipe off all the surfaces and objects. I will tell you the proper neutralizing agent depending on the fire extinguisher you had shortly. You're going to let the neutralizing agent sit for a few minutes, and then you'll wipe everything down a second time using clean water. Now I'll go over some very helpful tips so that you can clean up safely and properly. Okay, so as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, you need to protect your lungs from inhaling this substance. Now, while it is non-toxic, it is an irritant. So it won't cause any harm to you, but if you inhale quantities of this, it can irritate your lungs. If you've got an asthma problem, it can be particularly problematic for you. If you inhale too much of it, it can block your airwaves. It can cause pneumonia. It generally made me feel pretty sick, respiratory-wise. I took some measures to try to do what I could to get it off of me and out of me. I showered, I washed my hair, I irrigated my nose. I have a video on how to do that with salt water. I did a steam treatment. I have a video on that, on how to, to help my lungs. I went out into the fresh air. That helped a lot too. Try to avoid breathing it in. Get yourself a good respiratory mask. Get a box of them at Home Depot. That's what I did. And every time you go down there to clean, wear a new mask. You want to cover your hair with a shower cap. You don't want it getting into your hair. And then you want to cover your whole body because you don't want to come in contact with it because it is an irritant for your skin. You want to wear rubber gloves, the kind that you use to wash dishes, to clean and wipe everything down. And you can also use just latex gloves, exam gloves like that if you want to handle the cleaning of small, fine things like tools and, household items, if you don't want to wear the big gloves for everything. But you need to be careful that you keep yourself covered. Now, if it's particularly bad, wear goggles on your eyes because the dust did get into my eyes and it was really uncomfortable. It burned my eyes. Take as many precautions as you can to try to protect yourself from it. It's not pleasant. Okay, it was, in the middle of a heat wave I was doing this, so yeah, I was sweating a lot. And you can't run any fans or anything like that. No dehumidifiers. Don't run anything that's going to disperse this powder anyplace else. These fire extinguishers have several different kinds of powder, and depending on what your fire extinguisher has, that's going to govern your cleanup. My fire extinguisher had monoammonium phosphate. Other fire extinguishers can have potassium bicarbonate, bicarbonate soda, like baking soda. They can use that. And while it's non-toxic, again, you can inhale it and it can be a problem. The monoammonium phosphate is acidic and it is corrosive. So you want to get that off of any metals that you have in your home. as soon as possible. So if it landed on a water tank or a furnace or an oil tank or a refrigerator or tools or anything metal, you know, it was all over my computers, it was all over TV sets. Like, you've got to get it off of any electronics, because dust harms electronics, and anything metal, so you can prevent corrosion. Now here's the procedure to follow on how you're going to do the cleanup. Okay, first you're going to cover yourself and you're going to protect your lungs, like we just talked about. Next, you're going to use a dustpan. You're going to carefully try to pick up as much of the residue as you can that's loose and powdery. Be very cognizant about, not stirring it up. Be gentle with it. Try to get up as much of that as you can. Then you're going to want to vacuum. You're going to want to vacuum the area, the walls, the ceilings, everything that you can do. Now, we first used a shop vac. That was to do the main room where the explosion occurred. In the other room where there was residue but not so thick, I went to work with my household vacuum. Now, I have a really excellent vacuum, which if you don't have an excellent vacuum, I recommend you get one just to have it. Never mind for this reason. But I have a HEPA vacuum made by Miele. It's a German manufacturer. They make excellent vacuums. It's called the Cat Dog. I'll link it below. You can take a look at it. It is one of the best purchases I've ever made. It's a fantastic, fantastic vacuum. And it will filter the air as you're using it. And it will not let anything back out into the atmosphere when you're vacuuming. It has excellent HEPA bags. There are 2 other filters in it. So I use that to start vacuuming the other room while my husband was doing the shop vac in the room where the explosion occurred. And after he had gotten the majority, he brought his vacuum outside, he got rid of the filter and all that. We let that settle, and then I went in there with my HEPA vacuum and did another vacuuming, and I vacuumed the walls, and I vacuumed every single surface with the brush of these rooms. Then we went to work trying to wipe everything down. After you've vacuumed and swept up all the loose debris and powder, now it's time to wipe all the surfaces with a neutralizing agent and water. If your fire extinguisher contained monoammonium phosphate like mine, you must first neutralize the residue on all metal surfaces. To do this, you will need a bucket that will hold 3 gallons of water. You'll need baking soda and rags. Follow these directions to make a baking soda and water treatment that you will apply to all metal surfaces. You'll let it sit for a few minutes and then you'll wipe it away with clean water to rinse off the baking soda. Non-metal surfaces can be wiped clean with either plain water or water mixed with a little dishwashing liquid. If your fire extinguisher contained sodium bicarbonate or potassium bicarbonate, these are not corrosive. You can neutralize the residue on all surfaces using a solution of water and white vinegar. To do this, you will need a bucket that holds at least 2 gallons of water, white vinegar, and rags. Follow these directions to make a solution of water and vinegar to neutralize the sodium and potassium carbonate residue. Then wipe all surfaces with the water and vinegar mixture and let it sit for a few minutes. Then you can wipe it away with clean water. If you used your fire extinguisher to put out a fire, and you find that in addition to all this residue, you also have some stuck-on areas where it stopped the fire, so it starts to form kind of like a coating to put out the fire. That can be sticky and hard to get off. Then you're going to have to use diluted alcohol to do that. Spray stuck-on residue with isopropyl alcohol diluted 50% with warm water. Let the solution sit for several minutes and then wipe clean with a damp rag. So you'll have to damp mop the floors, the walls, everything that this stuff touches. You're going to have to wipe it down. For the electronics, I used some microfiber cloths that we bought at Home Depot. I'll link everything below for you that I bought and used. And I use that to wipe off all the electronics. You know, you can't use water on electronics, but like I said, it's just a very fine powder. You could just take it right off. It will come off. I tried to vacuum it first. It really has to be wiped off, but I at least vacuumed with the air vents and things like that so that I wouldn't be pushing the powder into those air vents by wiping it. I'm telling you, it's a massive process the way it happened to me. I'm sure anybody who's had an experience with it, share it down below if you have more contained area, how long it took you, but this is days. I mean, I probably think it's probably over 500 square feet that was affected. So please, if you just watched this area and how to clean it up, go back and listen to what happened to me, because you really need to know how to protect yourself from your fire extinguisher exploding like what happened to me. So just, you know, when your crisis is past, please go back and watch the beginning part of this video. And I really hope you find this video helpful. I hope I could help prevent a problem from happening in your life. And I hope I could help you clean it up if you do encounter the use of a fire extinguisher. And I hope you never do. So please stay safe in your home and always check your stoves before you leave your home. Is something that I always do. And if you're new to my channel, I hope you'll subscribe for more helpful tips. I have something of interest for everyone. And please visit me at my blogspot where I do a lot of writing. And I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, so we can stay connected there as well. Alright, well, thank you so much for viewing. I really appreciate your time. Bye-bye now.